Welcome to Countdown to Game Day, covered by State Farm. Hard to believe that we're already almost halfway through the regular season for men's college basketball. Alongside Dalen Cuff, I am Sam Ravech. We are with you for the next 30 minutes, leading you up to what is going to be another great slate of men's college basketball. Dalen, also the YouTube chat. Folks who are watching on the ESPN YouTube chat, please interact with us. We'll be monitoring that throughout the entire show as well. Let's start here. Let's start with the biggest takeaway, because I feel like there's been so many storylines this year, so many great stories. Some disappointments as well, which we'll get to in the show. But what's your biggest takeaway just at the midway point?
If you're just tuning in, the SEC is a monster.
Yeah.
And not just in football, it's in basketball. Welcome to modern college basketball. They are by far the best league, and not just the best league this year. They may be historically the best league we've ever seen. Now, back in 2011, the Big East had 11 teams in the NCAA tournament. That's not how you always gauge a league, but that was 11 to 15 teams then. You're going to get 12 or maybe 13 of 16. By Ken Palm's rankings, who I think is the best statistician, if you will, the best predictive metric, you got 14 of the top 48 in this league. That's bananas. Every single night you have teams that are playing in the top 25 but are capable, half the league, of getting to a Final Four. So it is, and let's not bury the lead here. The product is the best product we have in college basketball too. You have guys that play with pace, space, can make shots well above the rim. Phenomenal athletes, phenomenal players, outstanding coaches, and the best environments. It's the best product, it's the best league, and it ain't close.
Coaches, too. Coaches are a big part of why the SEC has improved over the years as well to become as good of a conference as they have been. I think for me it's been Kansas, and it's been a bit of a disappointment. It's been a bit of an up and down season, trying to bring in some of those transfers like A.J. Storr. It's been a bit of a mixed bag for him as well this year, but Kansas in large part has just kind of underperformed, and I think in their two losses, the Missouri loss and the Creighton loss, were a bit alarming to me just because of the physicality difference that looked apparent throughout the entire game on the offensive side and on the defensive side. And then the West Virginia game, it's like, where did the offense go? So I think Kansas has some issues that they want to work out throughout the course of this season. But right now, I got some questions.
And you're right, just had those questions. The WVU loss at home is the first time in 33 years they lost their home opener in league play. Like, winning in Fog Allen is tough. Now, I will say this. Bill Self's a Hall of Famer. We know that. And he used to go big man basketball. A lot of 4-5, having that kind of inside-out presence and high-low basketball. He's gone back to that the last couple of games. Badunga and Hunter Dickinson are two big dudes that he's kind of playing the way they used to play. And I think that's the way they have to play. Hunter Dickinson has to get touches constantly in the interior. He has to pound them inside, because they don't get a lot of free throw attempts either, which is a hard way to play if you're not manufacturing free throws. You mentioned the transfers. Yes, they have not been. A.J. Storr has been not as good as they'd hoped. David Coit has had ups and downs. Zeke Mayo is playing better as of late. But they need those bigs to be those bigs, and those guards have to realize that's where our bread is buttered, and when they do that, they will be better. So I'm interested to see if they stick with that, because they made that turn about 2 weeks ago, and that's going to be a key to them turning this thing around and being the title contender we all thought they would be.
No question, and we're going to get to Kansas and also some of the other disappointments that we've seen throughout the college basketball season so far this year.
Sam hates Rutgers, by the way. Just bury the lead.
All right. Rutgers is. I don't even know how to figure out Rutgers.
Sorry,
that is a major question mark as to how that has gone downhill. But a lot has changed, I think. Speaking of Rutgers, like, a lot has changed since those preseason projections, where a team like Rutgers came into the season and were like, they could win this Big Ten. But no, that's not the case. And for those of you who kind of took a glance at the preseason projections and then turned your attention over to college football, no shade here. But if you are just coming back to the game as we sprint down the stretch to March, throw those preseason projections out the window, because a lot of them aren't really, they don't really apply anymore. So let's run through some of the biggest storylines that we've seen so far through the first half of the season. And let's start with the two-time defending national champions, the UConn Huskies. Came out of the gate really struggling in Maui. They lost 3 straight games in 3 days, but then they came back to the mainland. They won 8 straight before losing on the road to Villanova this week. Can UConn become the first team since John Wooden's teams of UCLA to win 3 in a row?
No. I think they're a very good team, but to win a national championship this year, I don't think the Con has definitely not what they've had in the years past, or what is necessary to win this year. Liam McNeely, a really talented freshman. He's going through injuries right now. They don't guard well enough on the perimeter, and that's where Danny Hurley's DNA has been since I saw him going nuts on the sidelines at Wagner, 15 years ago when he started his individual coaching career in college with his brother Bobby by his side. It was about defense, and this team is getting better, without a doubt, but they don't guard at that elite level. They don't have guys that can break you down off the bounce as much. You're relying a lot on Alex Caravan, the junior who's won 2 championships. As I mentioned, McNeely, a freshman, to help give you some scoring. They're trying to figure out their inside presence as well. Terrace Reed can give you it sometimes. Samson Johnson is not a guy you're going to throw the ball to in the block. I mean, last game they lost against Nova, 4 free throw attempts the whole game. And now Caravan missed 2, which would have put them up 1 with 3 seconds to go. Heartbreaking for that young man. But this team is good, but they are not built to win a championship. That's no knock on them. It's just the two teams we saw the last 2 years, those guys were truly special.
They were.
They didn't just win their tournament games, Sam. They covered in every single one. They won every one by double digits, all 12 of those games. We're just not going to see that very rarely.
No, we aren't. And again, the fourth loss of the season against Nova, it's already more than they had all last year, but it definitely feels like they're missing something in a lot of different areas. Yep. Like Donovan Clingan last year, like Tristan Newton, just a guy that can handle the basketball. That just doesn't seem like they have that this year. Last season, we talked a lot about the transfers, a Dalton Connect kind of guy that transformed a program at Tennessee. Those kind of transfers are still out there, but it feels like so far this year it's been taken over by the freshman Phenoms. The conversation doesn't end with Cooper Flagg, but it definitely starts there.
Absolutely. It begins there. That dude he's the guy that NBA scouts been talking about and salivating for years. He played in the summer with the team's USA Select against our team that went to play in Paris and won the gold medal. They were blown away by what that guy was doing against the NBA's best. Now, he leads Duke in basically every statistical category. He's an unselfish player. He understands how to win and wants to commit to winning and playing the right way. Most important thing he does, though, Sam, is he's guarded pretty well for a freshman. And that's the issue. Yeah. Usually, when you make the jump from college from high school to college, especially as a lead player, do you carry it on the defensive end? Can you understand the concepts? Can you understand rotations? Are you willing to commit to trying to stay in front of the guy you're guarding? He does a good job of that. Nipple does the same thing. Malawak, their big center. Those are three freshmen to start on a team that's right now the #1 rated defensive team in the country, partially because of their schedule. I think we'll see that will help them in the ACC. We'll come back to that. But Flagg is amazing. He's everything as advertised. I'm excited to see where he goes. Now, as it relates to freshmen carrying you to cutting down the nets in San Antonio, that's a different proposition.
I'm going to spring one on you here, Dalen. Cooper Flagg is the best freshman since blank.
That's tough because I would say Zion may be it, and that's but Zion was a comet in terms of he kind of captivated our imagination. You had a president sitting there and watching his game. I don't know if 47's going to roll into camera anytime soon. But when Obama was there, that was the kind of star power and what he was putting butts in the seats. Flagg hasn't captivated the imagination, but I think he's capable of playing at the next level. If Zion was ever healthy all the time, he would have materialized in the NBA and has the commitment to what we thought he would be. Flagg seems to have the commitment. It seems like he projects that way. So I would say he's the best freshman since Zion.
We said it obviously starts with Cooper Flagg, doesn't end there. You can go with Jeremiah Fears at Oklahoma. You mentioned Liam McNeely, who's been excellent, but injured at UConn. Obviously, Asa Newell at Georgia. But Illinois has got a really interesting team and a really interesting freshman as well.
Yeah, Kasper Jasikunis, who's also dinged up right now. He missed their last game, but didn't matter. Illinois just thrashed their opponent. This is a guy that's uber efficient. And now he grew up and played in the Barcelona Academy, which obviously in Spain, and growing up in that league, I think Americans don't understand the quality of basketball being played in Europe. And when you play in that system, you're a pro.
You're a pro
as a young kid.
That's a great point.
He was playing on their reserve team or their B team. He trained some time with the A team. Now that's a team playing in the Euro League. That's one of the best top 50 teams in the world, 35 teams in the world. And he's learned how to play the game. So he comes right in, doesn't miss a beat. He hooks guys up with Illinois. He runs the point for them. He makes shots. His effective field goal percentage is off the charts. And that's another thing that's hard to do as a freshman is to be efficient and perform at a certain level. His efficiency was really high. He's got some good players around him, really well coached by Brad Underwood. Illinois is the class of the Big Ten, and I think we'll prove that out over the course of the Big Ten season, led by a freshman.
One of the teams last year that UConn dispatched en route to their second national championship was Alabama. And Nate Oates at the start of this year said, quote, "This is the best roster we've had since we've been here." Do you think that Alabama has the talent to make it back to a Final Four this year?
I do. They're better equipped this year than they were last year. Last year was a surprise because on the defensive end of the floor, they struggled. Now they're better this year. Cliff Omarui comes in to help them kind of anchor their defense, a shot blocker, better at rebounding. And then that guy, Mark Sears, preseason All-American, first team. We loved him last year, player of the year in the SEC. But he wasn't efficient to start the year.
Slow.
Slow. I mean, we're talking like 10 percentage point drops in his three-point marks, sub 30% for a period of time. He has worked that back up. The last couple weeks, he's been more efficient, and they play ultra-modern basketball. It is space, it is pace, it is threes, free throws, and layups. If you shoot a two, just put your butt on the bench. It's not a layup. Nate Oates does not want it, is not interested in it. And Sears, when he plays as efficient as he has, you got Grant Nelson, another big that can stretch the floor. As I mentioned, Omarui before. Philon's been really good. You get some other transfers that they know exactly what they're about, and they're playing in that SEC, which and their non-league schedule is really tough too, which showed some warts, showed how they have to play at a certain level, and the SEC will continue to test them, but they're going to come into March, I think, primed and ready to rock.
Houston Mallett was one of those guys that they brought in as well, Chris Youngblood for Alabama. This team was, I don't want to say solely reliant on the three last year, but that was in large part one of the reasons that they were able to have so much success in the tournament and towards the down the stretch of the SEC season because they shot the three so well. It doesn't feel like they are as reliant on it this year because of some of the presence that they have down low. But what is the identity of this Alabama team this year, do you think, Dalen?
We're going to play fast. We're going to shoot. We're going to get our threes up.
Yeah.
They're going to shoot 45 to 50% of their shots every game of threes, and unabashedly so. And you're right. Not every night it's going to be there. The difference is the defensive end of the floor, I think, allows them to stay in games and they don't shoot it well. At the same point, because of how they space the floor, and you have to respect the three-point line, they're great at getting into the paint, getting their paint touches, getting you to collapse, kicking out for good threes. And if you try to stay home on the shooters, they have guys that can finish in the rim. And if you're helping uphill from a big, they got bigs you can lob it down to. So they lob it up to, I should say. So they try to impose their will on the game upon you, and at times they'll let you score. And we're going to go score the other way.
We'll go score, right.
That A&M game tonight is one of the ones I'm excited about. I'm sure we'll talk about it later because I hope Wade Taylor's able to play. We'll see if that's not likely. We'll see what happens with him, the A&M star. But A&M, offensively are not that good. They're better defensively. But if you let them kind of play, Alabama, I wonder if they say, hey, we're just going to try to outscore you.
Second chance opportunities for Texas A&M as well. They're one of the best.
That's their offense. Just throw it up at the rim and go get it. They're
Yeah.
number one in the nation in offensive rebounding.
Only Indiana State made more threes last year than Alabama. A little bit of a slower start beyond the arc. They're shooting 32% as opposed to the 36% last year. But there are so many great players in men's college basketball this season. The Wooden Award midseason top 25 list was just announced earlier this week on Tuesday. You've got the usual suspects up there. Janai Broom, of course, Cooper Flagg. We all expected to have the year that he is having. But it does feel like there's a little bit more room for debate as far as who's the best player in college basketball right now. Who do you think deserves the Wooden Award? Who you are a voter as well at this point of the season? Who would you be voting for?
It's funny. The last 2 years, Zach Edey was a done deal. This isn't a conversation. So yes, we at least can have a dialogue this year. Janai Broom is a heavy favorite in Vegas. This is interesting. Cooper Flagg couldn't be listed on the Vegas books until he turned 18, which was 3 days before Christmas. That's how young Cooper Flagg is. I didn't mention that to you folks earlier.
Yeah.
He was 17 early in the season. Janai Broom, where his game has developed and why I think he is the odds-on favorite right now, is his ability to play inside, to play outside, as you see here. He now is knocking down threes at a consistent pace, but it's not just off the pass. You just saw he can make a step back. He doesn't want to fall in love with that, but he can do that. You can abuse guys on the block. You can play through him. His passing's really improved. He's got 7 other seniors around him that have played a lot of basketball games. Some have transferred in, some have been there. And Tahad Pettiford, a very young, talented freshman. I think Auburn's the best team in the country. It's a bit of a cop-out sometimes to say the best player and the best team. But I do think that where Auburn will go through the SEC provides so many primetime, big eyeball games, especially once football ends.
Yeah.
And I think he will perform at that level that he ultimately will get Player of the Year.
What do you think has been the biggest jump for him from last year to this year? Because he was a great player last year, too, on this team.
I think it's his ability to stretch the floor consistently and make shots, and also just not turning it over as much. I think his understanding of the game,
that's a good point.
his passing has improved, and we keep talking, efficiency is so critical. And I think that he and his teammates do make the game look easy. They make the game look easy for each other. And Bruce Pearl's a very good coach. Sometimes they run that old flex action where it's coming. And guys still get stuck on that screen, block the block, and you end up with a layup because you have guys that are spacing the floor well. They're playing for each other, screening for each other. He's a great leader, too. I think he's really developed and matured as a man. I remember seeing him at Morehead State when they went to the tournament 3 seasons ago. And you could see he had to be on the block. He had to go to his left hand. None of that exists anymore. Every single year since he has developed more to his game. He's more even with both hands, making threes, passing, shooting, and leading.
I don't love to make the comparisons between teams, but this team does kind of remind me of those UConn teams, just in the sense that they have so much depth and they play with that. And Bruce Pearl at Auburn has had one of the best starts to the year that he's had. But again, this was a team last year that a lot of people had eyeballs on. It was once they got into SEC play and you start getting some nicks, that's when things get interesting too. And attrition, this is going to be a league that's so tough. If you can stay healthy, that's going to be a big part of it.
Which is huge. The difference with last year's team is their non-league schedule was truly weak. We didn't know what we got until they got in league play. They really challenged themselves in non-league play this year. And obviously Maui was a good field. I think they have the most quad 1 wins in the country.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll get to the quad 1 updates and what those are good wins. I'll just say they have really good wins against good opponents more than anybody in the nation. And playing in that SEC, they'll have more. But I love your point about depth because that is truly a difference maker. It doesn't have to be Broom. There are other guys on that team that are going to step up and have stepped up and make plays that make that team truly difficult to defend.
In the same vein of recapping the first half of the season, I want to get your thoughts on a couple of the college basketball superlatives. We've already mentioned some of them, but best offense, best defense. We talked about the best player. Best conference has stirred up a ton of debate this year, rightfully or wrongfully so. We'll see. But let's start with a dark horse team to watch this year. I'll kick us off. I don't know if the number 10 team in the AP poll is necessarily a dark horse team, but I don't think people think of Texas A&M as a college basketball, blue blood. But again, Buzz Williams' team, incredible start to the year, 2-0 in SEC play. This team trailed by 9 at the half to Oklahoma. And then they scored 50 points in the second half without their best player, like you just mentioned.
On the road.
It gives me more confidence, I think, that this Texas A&M team can make some noise in the SEC. Anderson Garcia, again, we're making UConn references this year, but Andre Jackson, he reminds me exactly like a very similar player as far as get to the rim, play defense, know your role, rebound. That's what this team does well, averaging over 16 offensive rebounds a game. I mean, it's been silly, and you said that's their offense.
Yeah, that's sometimes their best offense. I think it's 44% of their misses they're getting, which is astronomical. It's the way they play. They defend at a high level. But to your point about under the radar, branding matters. Like people gravitate toward brands and assume that certain teams are going to be good. So when you see Texas A&M, that makes you perk up and be like, whoa, they're number 10 in the nation. But they're legit there, and that game tonight at home, that's going to be a wild environment there.
All right, best offense in the country so far.
It's hard to argue. We talked about it before. It's Auburn.
Yeah.
And it really is because of the way they can play inside, outside. Guards can beat you off the bounce. Broom, obviously, as we talked before, can beat you in the interior. Dylan Cardwell has played better when he's available. Yep. Baker Mazzara is a guy that is a spark plug, gives you a whole different level of energy. And I mentioned Pettiford as a freshman, a guy that can come on and do different things that some other guys in the court may not be able to do. But their ability to play together for each other, and again, the quality of opponent that they've been able to break down. I mean, their only loss is on the road at Duke in a game where they didn't particularly play well, and Duke did play really well. And that's, again, a tough environment. Coming off those Maui, they won in Maui. 6 days later, through 6 time zones? You're flying all the way over there. You're going on the road to play at Cameron Indoor. Really tough game. That's the only L of the year. So I think they are the best offense in terms of efficiency and playing for each other.
Baker Mazzara not afraid to just get in your face either.
Sometimes to a fault. Last year, remember the NCAA tournament game, he gets kicked out against Yale. They lose the game. Like that's easy, buddy. Easy a little bit.
Take it easy. Still early in the season. All right, best defense. You just mentioned Duke, and in large part the defense they played against maybe the best offense in the country in Auburn. But we think of this Duke team, I think, as an offensive-minded team. But I kind of go back to John Shire and when he was playing at Duke. Those were some of the best defensive teams that Duke had ever had in the late 2009, 2010 kind of era. But if this team holds right now 58 points per game that they're allowing, that would be the best mark in program history, at least since 1951 when they started tracking some of this stuff. No team has scored more than 80 on Duke all year. And also, Dalen, you said it, there's just a little bit of an unknown coming into the year because we knew they were going to be reliant on a lot of young players. And when you start 3 freshmen, usually some of the errors show up on the defensive end. That hasn't been the case here.
No, not at all. And that's a testament to John Shire and the staff and getting those guys ready, understanding what to do. Also, they've got a lot of physical gifts. Malawak is a big dude. I mean, he's got 7'6" wingspan, protecting the rim. But you also have guys like Sion James and other veteran guys that come in off the bench that actually elevate your level of defense as well. So they never really drop off on that side of the ball. I will say this. Playing in that league in the ACC, they may hit that 58 below point mark because there's a lot of really poor teams in the ACC this year, unfortunately, which helps them from a statistics standpoint. I don't think it helps freshmen. You learn. It's easier to learn from winning game tape. Every player loves sitting in the film room after winning. That's better to break that down. But you learn more from losing a lot of times, especially as a young player. And I'm not sure they're going to be tested enough to have those losses and those lumps like they did against Kentucky when they turned it over late, like they did against Kansas, turned it over late. That was Knipple, that was Flagg with the ball in their hands down the stretch. You have to be seasoned in those moments because in March it comes down to those moments. So I wonder if they're going to be tested enough in the ACC to really hone that part of their game.
We're going to talk about the best conference in just a second, but I kind of wonder if there is a team to trip Duke up in the ACC. I'm going up and down their schedule. I don't see it.
We'll get to my biggest disappointment in a second. So that they're in that league, but that's the problem is I don't see them truly being. They're going to lose a game or two. That's fine. It happens. But to actually contest them and be able to be consistent throughout the 18-game or 20-game ACC league schedule and beat them to the title there, I don't see it happening.
All right, best newcomer, Dalen.
Chaz Lanier, which is interesting from Tennessee. I mean, this is a guy that, following the footsteps of Dalton Knecht, who comes from Northern Colorado and becomes the SEC Player of the Year. If there was no Zach Edey, would have been the National Player of the Year.
No question.
This was, Rick Barnes back in his bag, doing it again. Lanier comes from North Florida. Now, Connect was a comet and was truly a unique player. Lanier's very good. He's been very efficient, can play and score at all 3 levels, very much under control, a very good defensive player, which Rick Barnes always demands of, and that's where Connect really had to learn last year. But Lanier is he's the best newcomer because he's making such an impact on a team that's capable of getting to the Final Four. Is he an NBA player, a first-round pick? We can debate that. But is he an effective college basketball player that makes the balls significantly better? And he has to play well for them to be really good, as they just got thrashed by Florida.
Yep.
And he struggled early, settled for a lot of jump shots, and that helped them kind of spiral early, and they could never get their footing on the road in Gainesville. But he has been the best newcomer, most impactful newcomer this year.
Producer Shelby telling me, Mayor, we're going to move, but we're going to move past your biggest disappointment. But I want to hear who your biggest disappointment is really quick.
UNC, and they were a team that should be in the top 10. R.J. Davis, one of the best guards in the country, a trio of guards that can deliver. They have nothing in the front court. They had a tough schedule. They've lost all those tough games. Some of them were non-competitive. It's unfortunate for them, but again, that really hurts that league. Yeah.
All right. Best conference. Again, this has been I don't know why, but it's been a topic that has stirred up some discussion based on what we saw. You know, the SEC came out the gates, right? They went 14-2 in the SEC ACC challenge, and that's when we really started to figure out, all right, this thing might be legit. But head coach at UConn, Dan Hurley, is not really buying into the "it just means more" moniker for the SEC, because he was recently quoted saying, "Is your league producing the best team in the country? I think that's what makes the league your best. Does your league have the best team in the country that wins the national championship? To me, that's what it is all about." And I think what he's kind of referencing here is like, well, the Big East has won 4 of the last 8 national championships, but does that necessarily mean that your league is the best? What do you make of his comments?
I don't like to usually disagree with Danny, but I will here. I think his point is noted. The Big East last year, I think they're also carrying a chip on their shoulder from last year. They got disrespected. Only 3 teams in the tournament.
Yep.
They should have honestly got 5 or 6.
Agreed.
Like I think they got hosed. That said, he's carried the flag for that league. They were the dominant national champs. To me, the best league is your level of depth. It's how many quality teams are total, and then who can win a national championship. So when you look at something like the ACC, we talked about how there is not much depth, and there's just Duke at the top that can win a national championship. SEC, you've got, again, 14 of the 16 teams in the top 48 in Ken Palm's rankings. You have 4 or 5 teams in that league that can win a national championship. That's what makes a great league, and that's where the Big East is somewhat off the pace. You've got a team like Marquette that I think could win the national championship. They have more depth. Georgetown, much improved team. DePaul, much improved team. So they're back end. There are really no nights off, and it's a true round robin league still, which is interesting that you have that in the Big East. It's the only conference left that has that in college basketball. You play at home and away and everybody. So I respect the Big East. I think they're a good league this year. I think they're improved at the back end, but they're not the best league. And just because you have a champion does not make you the best league.
Fair enough. In the SEC, we just saw the #1 team in the AP poll, Tennessee, go down to Florida in the O-Dome, which, by the way, is completely back.
Yeah,
it is
that
back.
That place was wild.
Yeah, 30-point loss. Going back to 1991-92, 5 of the 33 teams that were the first team or the last team to lose a game, 5 of the 33 actually went on to win the national championship. So it's about 15% of the team that was last standing as an undefeated that went on to win it all. Who is your best team in college basketball right now?
I feel like I keep talking about it, but it is Auburn. I mean, and now Florida's close. I think Florida's really good.
Yes,
I think Florida's a team that can win, and talk about value to win a national championship. They're 25-1, so if you want to throw some shekels on that, I think that's pretty good. But overall, it is Auburn. And it's the team that defends at the highest level. Offensively, I think already says the best team in the country, has played a schedule that's been absolutely brutal. They're going to be the #1 team in the nation, assuming an upset loss this weekend. And again, the coaching too. Bruce Pearl is an elite coach. He's taken him to the Final Four before. And you talk about environments. Playing in the jungle, that place
perfect size. I love
my
that
God,
place.
that may be the toughest place to play in the country right now.
Yeah.
In the last couple of years, and then with the team they have right now, I don't see anybody, even that league, walking into their building and beating them. So that's the best team in the country as of now, but other teams may be able to catch them.
I think Duke is one of those teams that I think could catch them, but I think I still need to see a little bit more. I don't think they're going to be challenged like we've said in the ACC, but again, it could have gone so much in a different way, because I didn't get to talk about my biggest disappointment, but I just asked Steve Pikel how things are going at Rutgers when you were relying on some freshmen, and he's got a couple of the best ones in the country. But for Duke, you got lottery picks there that are going to be your cornerstone pieces if you're going to make a run. And I think what we've seen so far on the defensive end is something that can travel with them. And I don't know if it was something that they were necessarily missing last year, but this team, I don't know, they play with a bit of an edge that I haven't really seen Duke play with in a little while.
Yeah, they needed some toughness issues the last 2 years. Remember 2 years ago they played Tennessee in the tournament, and Kyle Filipowski got literally popped in the face, scarred his face.
Yeah.
Last year, I remember asking him about it. He acted like he was it really carried with him, and they had some toughness. Nah, bro. It was really similarly the same team. This team does have a little bit more toughness to them, a little more physicality. They disrupt you on the defensive end, and that gives them a shot. But offensively, yeah, when you get to those late game scenarios, I'm interested to see. And how they play on the road in true road games with young players really tells you about your team, too.
Jess Sims got a chance to catch up with the freshman phenom Cooper Flagg as well as John Shire, and she asked the coach what makes the freshman so special.
Coach, you guys have won 9 straight, and you're 5-0 in the ACC. How has your very young team gotten so much success so early?
Well, I think it just speaks to the character of this group. And, you know, from day one, they've chosen the hard way. And something we talk about is the obstacles, the way in our program. And these guys have all chosen that. And so we played in a difficult non-conference schedule. I think that's prepared us really well for the ACC. And then having veterans like Sion James, Malik Brown, Mason Gillis, Tyrese Proctor, Caleb Foster coming back. They've made it a lot easier on the freshmen as well with their maturity and their approach.
Well, speaking of the freshmen, obviously everyone is still buzzing about Cooper Flagg's dunk, and he is leading every single category for you guys. But what else does Cooper Flagg bring that we don't get to see on the stat sheet?
You know, I think the greatest thing about Coop is every day the person that he is besides the games. You know, if you came to one of our practices, his energy is contagious. He's bouncing off the walls. He knows no other way than to go 100%. And so that feeds off on the entire team when your best player has that approach, has that attitude every day. And because of that, he's gotten better. Because of that, we've won a lot, and he makes everybody better around him.
Well, thank you so much, Coach, and good luck.
All right, thanks, Jess.
All right, now let's check out some magic moments covered by State Farm. We're going to start in Carver Hawkeye Arena. Former Iowa women's basketball coach Lisa Bluter honored at halftime earlier this week. Over 880 wins in her career. Certainly going to be remembered for the Final Fours with Caitlin Clark. But so many players of hers from years past came up and came to see her. It was really cool to see that.
Yeah, great career. And it's to get your flowers is really important and necessary in life. I'm glad she did.
Yeah, there are all of her players kind of honoring her there. Really cool. All right, we got Sienna Quinnipiac. Justice Schultz for Sienna. Going to jab left, then take it to the house. Big poster for Schultz.
Yeah, Sherry McNamara's crew. GMAC's boys' first year coaching the Saints. Schultz, nice throwdown. Game didn't go well. They lost by 20, but it's okay.
That's okay.
This is all we really care about.
It's been an adventure, like we mentioned in Illustrated for UNC. How about this like a soccer throw-in style shot from R.J. Davis off the backboard and in over the 7'2" player?
Yeah, SMU has had some struggles in Andy Enfield's first year. That is a ridiculous shot.
Wow.
Now, one of the best things when the shot clock's running down, Sam, you got to get it up.
You got
ain't thinking. You're just firing.
Sometimes you got to play the lottery. Sometimes it works. All right, for those that missed the beatdown by Florida earlier this week over Tennessee, this kind of just illustrates everything. Elijah Martin sums up how things went. Fading away.
Dude, he's talking about an impact transfer, man. Coming from Florida Atlantic, he gives them a toughness. They're better on the defensive end by far than they were last year. But this is one of my favorite teams I mentioned before. Because Martin, that guy number 1, Walter Clayton, Will Richard, you have amazing guards, can make plays like that. You have bigs that can step out and make the three. You can protect the rim. They offensive rebound at a high rate. This is an elite team, and that dude's a bad man.
Yeah, Clayton didn't even really show up in that game either for Florida. They still won by 30. All right, this is the dunk heard round the world. Cooper Flagg puts an absolute poster against a Pittsburgh player here. Tyrese Proctor said this was the best in-game dunk that he had actually ever seen.
It's a heck of a dunk. Sorry, Diaz Graham we've shown this 10 million times on ESPN the last week, so sorry, young fella. It's a heck of a dunk. I'm surprised by Proctor's comments because you play AAU sometimes. You see some things, and you see some dudes that aren't supposed to be on the floor with some other guys, and some stuff happens. But I think this was a good viral moment for Flagg to kind of bust into America's consciousness.
All right, those were your magic moments covered by State Farm. What a tremendous slate we got on deck, Dalen. What do you got your eye on for today?
I think the game I'm most interested in is the 8 o'clock. These are good to start the day for sure, but the 8 o'clock game, A&M hosting Alabama, is just an outstanding game between the top 10 teams in a brutal environment. How does Alabama show up? How does Mark Sears show his leadership? And if Wade Taylor does not play, how many offensive rebounds is A&M going to get to win that game? Because they showed a lot of gumption coming back on the road against Oklahoma. Want to see how they follow it up at home. All
right, you are watching Countdown to Game Day covered by State Farm. I'm going to play a little Contender or Pretender here. We got like a minute left, so we're going to rip through these. Duke, Contender or Pretender? We're going to keep it to the Final Four. Can these teams make the Final Four?
It's a key distinction. I think they can get to San Antonio. It's hard with freshmen, but I don't think they can win the thing.
Okay, fair enough. Iowa State, much better defensively as well as the season has gone along. That's been their cornerstone.
100% a contender. And the big jump for them is offensively. Their guards are elite. They're veterans that have played for TJ Otzelberger. I love the Cyclones.
Good chance for them to go on the road today as well, Texas Tech, to prove that they are more of a contender. Auburn, agree, contender here. Florida, we're all in agreement here, contender as well there. Tennessee, contender, pretender to make the Final Four.
I hate this. I'm going to say pretender. It's not so much a knock on Rick Barnes.
I'm kind of with you. Yeah.
He struggled. They still will have these offensive lulls and challenges as good as they are defensively, and I think they're going to get tripped up.
30-point loss to Florida was the first 30-point loss by an AP #1 team since 1968. Alabama, contender, pretender. I think we both agree that they're a contender to make the Final Four. Kentucky, this is an interesting one.
I think pretender because I love what Mark Pope has done in year one. I love their players, their ability to play on offense. They just don't guard enough. And if they don't make threes, which they rely on, come a tournament game, they don't guard well enough. They're not going to make it.
Not getting any easier as well as the SEC slate rolls along here. That's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching Countdown to Game Day, covered by State Farm. For Dalen Cuff, I am Sam Ravech. Head on over to ESPN to catch College Game Day.